are suited and deliver news grabs in polyspeak. The times may have changed, but their anti-immigration whites-only message remains the same. Dismiss them as you might as far-right loonies, but support for the BNP is increasing. In fact, analysts are suggesting that in future elections, up to 20% of the UK's population would consider voting for them. Can a political lever change its spots? We sent Dateline's Evan Williams to find out.
In the British town of Codnor, protesters recently rallied against what they fear is a rise of fascism. Their target was the annual gathering of the British National Party, a right-wing group that's just won 2 seats in the European Parliament. At the meeting, BNP chairman Nick Griffin roused the troops by celebrating the party's landmark election victory.
Well, we have won, and we've won on a massive scale, and it's thanks to every single activist. It's thanks to you.
Deemed racist by their critics, the BNP is riding a swing to the right in Britain, mainly on the issue of immigration.
No one minds a little bit of immigration, but for goodness sake, the way it's happened in this country, as I said before, it's not immigration, it's colonisation. Used to be a lovely area, this.
In the country's northwest, Derek Adams is showing me part of Manchester he says has become a Muslim area.
Well, now we have an Islamic bank. Oh, another Islamic centre. Well, it's a church which has now been turned into an Islamic centre.
Derek shows me a map he's drawn up of inner Manchester.
You've only covered that little tiny block there.
The light green marks the area he says is no longer white and British.
The genuine British people are concerned about what's happening.
These changes worry Derek so much that he's become the Manchester organiser of the British National Party. And he set up his de facto BNP headquarters here at his pub, the Ace of Diamonds.
Everyone has that.
Oh, there. How's it going?
Top of the morning to you, sir.
Until recently, these working class men of England's north were the country's core Labour Party voters. But something new is happening.
There you go, sir.
Here and in many other places across Britain, voters like these are abandoning Labour and voting for the BNP.
I stood in a ward that we'd never ever stood in earlier this year, where we picked up approximately 23% of the vote. Second place, which absolutely shocked the establishment parties to the core.
I'm in the Ace of Diamonds and...
Taxi driver Patrick Matthews has voted Labour all his life until this year. He says many in the north are angry with Labour because they feel it's abandoned the working class and done nothing to stop systematic parliamentary rorts, now known as the MP's expenses scandal.
They've been screwing the citizen for 30 years and they're looking at us like Lily White and saying to us that we're not, we're only just doing our job and we didn't do anything wrong.
Just an hour south of Manchester, the rolling hills of Wales provide an appropriately traditional base for the strategic brains behind the British National Party.
This is a big one, 50,000.
In the garden of his 400-year-old farmhouse, BNP chairman Nick Griffin is preparing his party's next fundraising pamphlet. Today's target is illegal immigrants.
No, better still not happy. That's it, still not happy.
Immigration detainees, and then that grey-heading scrub what you've got in there and just put still not happy.
They also want Britain to withdraw from the European Union.
No, still wanting more.
Okay.
It's an ironic demand given the BNP's election victory at the European Parliament, including a seat there for Griffin himself.
We don't want to be part of the EU for a number of reasons. Firstly, it's ruinously expensive. You're talking about billions and billions of pounds every year. Secondly, we're paying that money for the privilege of being ruled by unelected foreigners. So it's done away with our sovereignty, with our self-rule, with 1,000 years of British freedom. And thirdly, the elite had no mandate to do this. To us, it's thoroughly undemocratic, so all those reasons we want out.
Critics label Griffin's BNP as Nazi-loving fascists. So what do they actually stand for?
We're here for the indigenous people of these islands. We regard that's English, Scots, Irish, Welsh, and people who've assimilated completely to our way of doing things, our way of being.
What's your position on immigration and the migrants who are already here?
Our position on immigration is that Britain is now officially the most overcrowded place in Europe, other than Malta, which isn't a country, it's a postage stamp, basically. So, therefore, it's time to shut the doors.
Completely?
Completely.
While I'm here, Griffin gets a call from his lawyer. The BNP has a White Britain-only membership policy, which is now being investigated by Britain's Equal Opportunity Commission. If found to be illegal, the BNP could be stripped of its EU seats.
If a group exists to benefit specific ethnic groups, then it's exempt from the race relations laws. This is how you can get adverts in The Guardian for jobs, enormous amounts of taxpayers' money spent, and it's advertised for a black applicant only, for a Bengali applicant only. You know, these groups are exempt because they're operating for the benefit of their communities. We do the same for ours.
Griffin's BNP wants those immigrants and their descendants who do not accept Britain's culture, morals and democracy as dominant to leave. The party gives special attention to Britain's growing Muslim population.
They've resolutely refused to adjust their birth rate to our birth rate, and each generation seems to be more radical than the previous one and more Islamic than the previous one. We have to have a serious debate about what we do when you have two civilizations, two utterly different ways of running the world, which are incompatible. So the whole Western world has to decide, does it want to become an Islamic caliphate, or does it want to remain a Christian, post-Christian, secular, democratic society?
Those views may seem extreme, but with 2.4 million, or 8% of Britain's workforce, now unemployed, there's concern that support for the BNP's message will continue to grow.
What the BNP has done very well is it's really stripped away its extremist baggage and presented itself as a radical, anti-establishment alternative, much in the way that One Nation did in recent history.
Matt Goodwin is a leading researcher on extremist politics. He's about to release a new study of what British voters think of the BNP's far-right nationalist policies. He found 20% of British voters support aspects of the BNP platform.
But there's no question that the BNP is enjoying a surge of support, and this is a worrying development for British politics. Prior to 2000, the BNP only ever elected one local councillor. It now has over 50, it has a seat on the Greater London Assembly, it has 2 members of the European Parliament. This is an unprecedented development in British politics.
Just north of Manchester, Oldham has a history of race riots, and a large Asian Muslim community has been feeling the pressure. Nanu Mayes is one of the Oldham Muslim Centre organisers. He personally knows of several racist attacks on Muslims, including when he saw a local man knocked over by